Greetings, everyone. Just wanted to make this short video to let you know that I'm going to do, I would say, like a 2 or 3 part series on us being blinded by our disappointment with one another. I just came out of meditation, and a lot of things was revealed to me about where our anger and our rage and our dysfunction towards one another is coming from, in spite of the outside agencies like feminism and the mocking of one another, the effects of media, in terms of the music and everything. We've become so disappointed in one another that our anger has turned into hate, and our hatred of the effects of our environment has caused us to be manipulated into thinking that we hate one another as Black men and Black women, and our Black men towards Black women, and our Black women towards us as Black men. All of it roots in our being disappointed in one another, and that sense of disappointment is because we love one another. That's the root. And so I know that a lot of people, because it's been mentioned to me, a whole lot of people say, well, you don't get a whole lot of likes on your videos and things like that. Well, that has everything to do with me not taking the time and being responsible of learning what is called the algorithm on the in this YouTube world. So I'm responsible for that. I see a lot of views on the videos, but I don't see a whole lot of likes. So that doesn't concern me. As long as I'm getting some views, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm getting views. Someone is paying attention. I'm not the type of man who really cares about likes and subscribers, because what's most important to me is getting the information out. Whether you agree with it or not. But these videos are going to primarily be focused on us being disappointed of one another, and how our being disappointed in one another is causing so much strife, so much hatred, so much divisiveness, and it's all because we love one another. So this journey of getting past our differences and getting to love one another as we should, even as Black people over here in this country. As I said before, we are a unique people, so we are actually babies. So what Brother Kevin Samuels did do, he did a great work, because he brought out issues that we need to discuss. And so this is the first, I would say, step to our healing and therefore our redemption, because he pointed out things that we needed to discuss that we didn't discuss. And so now that those issues are out, and you have a whole lot of formats that are dealing with a whole lot of the basic fundamentals that he spoke about, we are going through the process of healing, as I was saying before. And as long as we endure the healing process and keep discussing the problems that we are having in our community, we are moving towards a redemption. And when redemption starts to flourish, then our community will be in the shape that it needs to be in every aspect. You have to excuse me, because I just not too long woke up and I work nights. But it's just going to be a series, and it's going to be titled Blinded by Our Disappointments. So I just wanted to put this out there right quick before I go back and lay down, because I get off at 6 in the morning, but I've only had like 3 hours of sleep. And so out here in Las Vegas, it is 5:48. So I still have some time to get some rest done. So I just wanted to put this up because I don't know how long that I'm going to sleep. So I wanted to do this now. But that's just something for a whole lot of us to think about, because if you really, really think about it, the reason why we are at each other's throats is because we're disappointed in one another. And what we're going to have to understand is that the disappointment is there because of our love for one another, because that's where our expectations come from. The fact that we love one another. I had gotten to the point to where my love for Black women was so strong. It was a guy who asked me on a bus stop. As a matter of fact, it was a white gentleman, and I was completely honest with him. And he was telling me, "What is your biggest fear in life?" I told him, "It's to wake up one morning and there are no more Black women on this planet." And I'm getting choked up now because my answer to him, it upset me. To wake up and to walk outside and look around at a world without Black women, it would literally kill me. So this is why we really need to, as Black men and Black women, to really get past our disappointment and our anger towards one another. And we really need to resolve all of these issues that a whole lot of us are facing this thing. It's the reason why the Passport Brothers even exist is because we have not taken the time to sit down with one another and resolve our differences. We have so many things out here that are drawing our Black women away from us. We have so many things out there that are drawing our Black men away from our Black women. We have a difficult task to face, but not an impossible task. So I just wanted to put this out there. And I'm going to tell a whole lot of Black men, this whole simp theology, you got to let it go. Now, I'm not saying that because I just got full, because I really don't care how you feel about David Brayboy. I don't care. You know, I'm not ashamed of how much I love Black women. I'm not ashamed of that, because not too long ago, my immense love for Black women had shamed my disappointment in Black women, in which put a hatred towards Black women inside of me. So when I was in meditation not too long ago, it wasn't today, but when I was in meditation not too long ago, and I got back in touch with that immense love that I have for myself, in terms of Black women, not strictly myself, I meant to say for Black women, it helped me understand what the problem is. And the problem was revealed to me of myself, that the reason why that hatred towards Black women was even present was because I love Black women so much. And so I think that if a whole lot of us as Black men understand the reason why we have this animosity towards Black women, is because we love them and we feel as though we don't have access to Black women anymore. And because of the way that the environment has affected a whole lot of Black men, we have pretty much lost ourselves. And so our approach to Black women turns Black women off because we've been contaminated, and vice versa. Black women have been contaminated by the immoral vices of our society, that Black men are turned off by Black women, which gave birth to the Passport Bros. So we have a whole lot of work to do, and I'm going to put my time in, and I'm going to do what I have to do in order to help a whole lot of us explain, understand what's going on in our community and the effects of it. So I'm gonna cut this short right now because, like I said, I'm gonna have to give me some more rest. but there's going to be either 2 or 3 videos that's going to be titled Blinded by Our Disappointments. I'm going to be dealing with that. And so the next 2 off days that I have, I'm going to dedicate my attention and time to that. So with that being said, I hope everyone have a good night and everyone stay human. And I love y'all, and peace. There's a very beautiful quotation that I heard many years ago. It has a very universal understanding. It says, as long as there is love left, then there is something to build upon. I bring that up because that is where we are in the Black community in terms of we as Black men and you as Black women. In my previous video, I have pointed out, and I believe it is a fact, and if many of you would self-analyze yourselves and go inside and be totally honest with yourselves, there is still love present inside of us, in spite of our disappointments. Our hurt, our disappointments is what is preventing us from healing to the degree where we can come back together as a community. What is very tricky about hurt, pain, disappointment is that because of what transpired in the past, in terms of memory and how much it made you feel on the inside, what comes along with that when the idea of what they call forgiveness, resolve, or moving forward, what comes in opposition to that is a deceptive intelligence that comes with it to justify us holding on to what transpired, which means that we are made to feel intellectually justified in maintaining our positions of having animosity towards one another. I hope that I explained that right. So when a whole lot of panels are up and a lot of our Black men and Black women are trying to figure this thing out about not only what's going on with Black men, but now there's a whole lot of panels that's going up, and we're trying to understand what's really happening with our Black women. And what we are going to have to remember and understand is our culture was cultivated by way of the irresponsibility of a lot of our elders before us. When the 70s, the mid 70s came into place, and the elders, you might as well say, started doing drugs and going to the clubs, and the disco era came in, and everybody started compromising their moral principles. And so when parents compromise their moral principles, when they have children, that means that the children are going to suffer. So a lot of us was raised up by our grandmothers and our great grandmothers. I was raised up by my great grandmother, which means that the parents had compromised their love towards their children. And so the children were left with the grandparents who still had enough love inside to look after the babies, you might as well say. So when all of that started transpiring, I would say the last generation that at least had a chance of being successful based upon productive principles and self-integrity, were the children who were raised by their grandparents and their great-grandparents, and they went forth and they became successful. But what happened was that the majority of the people who didn't have the option or the privilege of having grandmothers and great-grandmothers, those were the ones who fell by the wayside out here in this wicked society, and they became subjects of the effects of that society. They became drug dealers, they became thugs, they became gang members, you know, who looked upon their peers as family. And that's what happened. And not only with Black men, but with Black women as well, in whatever areas. And so that is what produced this condition right now. So the children who came out of those parents, I'm talking about the early 80s and going into the early 90s, those parents, the children that came out of those parents is what you're looking at right now. And this is one of the primary reasons why our community is in the shape that it's in right now. The quotation had said, as long as there is love present, then you have something to build upon. So it's basically saying the root has to be love, the root. And love has to germinate so that it can take root, so that it can grow and bloom and be productive and be successful. That is not a manifestation right now in terms of what's going on in our community. And so we spent a lot of time hurting one another, and this is what we're dealing with right now. The effects of disappointment, the effects of hurt, the effects of slander, because a whole lot of the podcasts right now, to where we have a whole lot of people discussing what I'm discussing right now. What I'm starting to notice is that not enough of these panels are focusing on the solution that's going to lead to redeeming our people. We're just going back and forth. Black men and Black women are going back and forth, and we're just beating each other up because of our ruptured personalities and our discord, in which filtered down to our personalities and have created a race of people that are self-destructive and immoral. And so going back and forth and all of these debates, the reason why nothing comes out of them is because there's no love. It's not rooted in love. I mean, we even have these brothers who have fallen victim to this whole simp theology. Now, if you still a man as myself who is considered a gentleman, who holds doors and who pulls out chairs and who's not afraid to express how he feel about black women, you are considered a simp. And so we spend a whole lot of times giving these um, false titles to one another. And so now a whole lot of black men are walking around right now. I would do thus and so, but I don't want to be looked upon as a simp. Well, what you have to do is not give a damn about how people see you. Don't let these people rule you. These brothers rule you. Because if you watch those brothers long enough, like 5 and 10 years down the line, they're still going to be talking that same bullshit. And they're still going to be single and unhappy and bitter and going back and forth and disclaiming any black man that's trying to be that, who is not ashamed of being himself. So when it comes to black women of this generation, finding black men who wouldn't mind expressing himself like that, they've put a barrier up, which is the simp theology, to where that barrier is blocking black women from actually coming in contact with these men, because these men are torn down and talked down by their fellow black men, to the degree that these black men who are gentlemen feel awkward even being themselves. So that's working against us. And so on the black women, it's I don't know what they call it, but when a whole lot of black women want to say, I love black men and I honor black men, and, you know, you have black women talking against them, talking them down. And so on this side of black men, we're not able to come in contact with these black women, because upon the side of black women, when these black women try to move towards us, and when they want to really try to love us, they feel uncomfortable of expressing that love and honor towards black men, because the black women are tearing them down. And so you have this simp theology, and you got this strong and independent bullshit going on with the black women, and it's keeping good black men from black women, good black women, and good black women from good black men. So with all of these panels discussing, nothing comes out of that productive, because at the end of these discussions, the problem is still even more stronger, because no one has come up with a solution that's going to eventually heal the community upon both sides, to where we can actually come to a redemption, to where we can come together as a community of black men and black women, heal, redeem ourselves, and move forward. So what's keep preventing us from doing that is that we have become blinded by our disappointment in one another. We're so disappointed in one another, and it's so strong. It's because the root of our complaints and the root of our grievances, there's a strong love that none of us want to admit. Get rid of the simp thing. Get rid of the strong and independent theology, and be honest. Be honest. If you love black men, love us honestly. Black man, if you love that black woman, love her honestly, and don't care what these fellow black men call you. Don't care. And on the black woman, don't care about what your sisters are gonna call you and how they're gonna look at you. That's not important. It is love that is important. Now, people may say, I don't like that word love. Well, love has had a bad rap, and you can blame us for that. You can blame us even for that. But the whole thing is, it's still present. It's still present in all of us, and we're blinded by our disappointment in one another. And that's just the way it is. So what are we going to do? Are we going to have discussions that are objective to where when we pull away from the screen after watching all of these podcasts, whether they're both male and female together, or all females talking, or all men talking, at the end of all of those beautiful discussions and insightful discussions, let's end those discussions with a plan to where it's going to give the Black community hope of healing and redemption, that we may move forward, because that's what we need. We need to break ourselves out of this daily conflict that's going on in all of us, on these panels, on the streets, because even out here in Las Vegas, it just seems like the Black women are always angry about something, always angry. And these Black men, they always got some deception going. It is always some deception going on, to the degree when a Black man, hey man, can I ask you a question? It ain't nothing but some bullshit coming. That's all it is. That has to end. So we need healing on both sides. We need healing on both sides, and therefore we can't point the finger at the Black woman without pointing it at ourselves. And the Black women can't point their finger at Black men without pointing it to themselves. And that's just the way it is. We have to get rid of this deceptive intelligence that comes and rationalizes and so-called justifies our current position, while our current position is against one another. We have to end that. We have to end it. I'm going to cut this first one short, because I have a lot of things to do tonight, and I'm basically exhausted from my work week. But tomorrow things will be much better, because I would have gotten the rest that I need. I was trying to make up my mind if I wanted to do this first one tonight, but I think that I've put enough out there in order to build on the next video a little bit more objectively. So with that being said, I greet everybody a good night, and everyone have a good rest and peace. Stay human. found in my journal this saying, and I wanted to share this with everyone tonight. It says, there are plenty of instances of when we would rather suffer the pains of the current relationship because of our fear of not wanting to face the pains of a breakup. The breakup is painful. It implies something that has been broken because it was before breaking. I believe that that's another reason why our community have become the way we have become in terms of relationships and therefore our treatment of one another. That goes in harmony with the title of this small series. You know, we have been blinded by our disappointments. And our disappointments contain a whole lot of pain, regret, betrayal. You know, those are a whole lot of entities, you might as well say, that takes a lot out of us while we're inside of a relationship that is considered abusive because of verbal abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. And when we are, I would say, emotionally attached to someone, and we mistaking that as love, when it's really nothing other than we're just emotionally attached to that person. And it's also a fear of losing that person. So a lot of us, sometimes we remain in relationships for the sake of not wanting to feel the pain of a breakup, you know, so that you will not have to suffer through breaking up. Because for some reason, in terms of time, we fear that it's going to take us so many days, so many weeks, months, or years in order to heal from a breakup because we're broken on the inside. But which one would you rather suffer? Would you rather suffer inside of a so-called relationship where you and her or yourself and him are no longer really relating to anything upon a peaceful state? You're no longer communicating. And when you do communicate, you argue or you're on the borderline of getting into an argument. And then when you do get into an argument, the worst thing that we have done and we're still doing is using the act of sex in order to so-called resolve our differences, when sex doesn't resolve anything. You know, this madness that a whole lot of these celebrities come up with called make-up sex. There is no such thing as a make-up sex, because if you were communicating to the degree that you ended up not communicating effectively, and you either agree to disagree and you go your other ways, or you just go silent and you don't talk about it anymore, which is another deadly blow to the relationship, because your efforts are not to communicate anymore, because actually there's no more love left. As my previous video had mentioned, if there is still love, then you still have something to build upon. Now, once it gets to the point to where you go your separate ways in terms of a disagreement that you have, and you let time go by, and then you crawl into bed with each other, and then you start having sex, and the very next day you act as though you didn't have a disagreement the night before, and you just carry on with your so-called relationship until that same subject comes up again. And then you wonder why does this keep coming up? Because it is something that has been unresolved, and you think that you resolved it by way of the act of sex. No, you're not resolving anything by way of sex. You have to communicate with one another. And in some instances, I'm pretty certain that a lot of you have come to notice or even come to realize within your current relationships that communication has almost diminished. And we're using sex as an object for resolve when that's an illusion. I've been through that type of so-called relationships, this so-called makeup sex, this thing of when you tell a person to leave, whether you're a man telling this woman to leave or a woman telling this man to leave. And when that person returns to get their belongings, you start talking to one another because you're angry at what transpired, which caused this person to have to come over and get their belongings. Now you want to communicate. And then you start arguing a little bit. You start, going back and forth. Next thing you know, people start touching each other, and there you are again. You're laid up in the bed and you have sex, and all of a sudden, we're back together. When you're really not. Because you're still not dealing with the issue. So you're still apart psychologically because you haven't communicated with one another. You're relying on your emotional attachments. You've become addicted to one another. And the root of that is the fact that you fear going your separate ways and suffering the trial of healing and detachment. And so you would rather remain in a relationship, even though it's abusive and dysfunctional. You would rather suffer that pain than to suffer the pain of your own personal healings on both sides. So I bring this up because even after breakups, I encourage us to still find some way, even though we have come to realize that we are not going to be together because we're too indifferent. It doesn't have to always end in conflict and animosity. It could end in peace, even if the relationship was verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive. It doesn't necessarily always have to end in such a way to where hurt cultivates into a state of hatred towards one another. I say that because it has to get to the point to we sit down as adults. I hear a lot of people talk about this whole grown thing. We're grown men. I'm a grown woman. You want to know what grown means? It only means that you're 21. It only means that you are of legal age to where you could pretty much venture out into other areas of where other adults are functioning in life, like drinking or whatever the case may be. But to be an adult about things That takes a higher level of intelligence, patience, and death of the former self. And what I mean by death of the former self, I'm talking about the death of the former self because you have been risen to a state of maturity to the degree to where you recognize that breakups doesn't necessarily always have to end in animosity and hatred. I think that this is one of the reasons why our community is going through what we're going through. I think that this is one of the reasons why Black men and Black women have this animosity towards each other, because we have not gotten to the point to where we are able to go our separate ways without any animosity. Now, as unrealistic as this may sound to many of you, you have to ask yourself, why does this sound unrealistic to me? Why is this unrealistic to me? Just understand that there's a dual component with everything. And the reason why I say that is because what is deemed as unrealistic, the dual says otherwise. This is a realistic reality. It is realistic because the majority, I would say the majority of the women who I've had relationships with, we found out that we're not compatible. Now, I bring this up a lot, but this is just for example. My relationship that I had with Salam Yilmaz, who was in Georgia. A lot of people was asking me, why did you try to reach out to her by way of email, considering how very cruel she treated you while you were there? She tried to freeze you out of her home. She tried to starve you. She went out right in front of you. She brought men over to where you guys were staying, and she did everything that American Black women try to hide. But this Ethiopian, she did it all in your face. So David, did you still try to reach out to her because she was not an American Black woman, but she was an Ethiopian? No, that's not the case. And that's a very intelligent question to ask. And therefore, it's not a question that rubbed me the wrong way. No. The reason why I reached out to let her know that I'm fine. I hope things are going well with you. You know, I offer to you my friendship, and I went on my way. The reason why I did that is because I'm an adult. And I'm 60 years old right now, and I don't have any high blood pressure or anything like that, because I know how very unhealthy situations can escalate to the degree that it starts to affect your physical self. I'm an adult, and adults are able to move on. Adults have the ability to look into a situation objectively and understand that I'm not going to allow my past to complicate my present. And I'm not going to allow the harshness of a bad relationship alter me or kill me in a sense to where I can't love another woman when I come in contact with her. And it's not that most people will say, yeah, you can't let her win like that. No, I cannot allow things to defeat me. And the only way that things can defeat me is if I allow it. There's nothing on the planet that's going to make me hate anyone that I've ever been with. Even with the cruelty of my son's mother, causing my youngest son to not speak to me, I don't hate my son's mother. I still very much love her. But at the same time, we are not compatible. We live two different lifestyles. She's out doing her thing, and I'm out doing mine. You know, I'm a writer. You know, I'm getting more successful in the market. You know, to where I'm starting to accumulate a whole lot of wealth, to where I will soon be able to buy property out here in Las Vegas. That's my life. You know, I'm a writer. I'm into real estate. I'm in the stock market, and I'm at peace. And I'm at peace. Now, if I'm at peace and if I'm an adult, what do I look like holding animosity towards anyone that I've been with? Because I live in the present, not only physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. I bring all of that up is because this is one thing that we as a community need to pay very close attention to. It's not about always what that person did to you. See, did implies the past, which means you're still alive and you're moving forward. And if you're hurting from the past, it only means that in the present, you're also healing while you're moving forward. I brought up Brother Miles Davis' condition when he suffered through the pain of getting off of heroin and cocaine. He said each moment, the pain gets less and less. See, he's talking about the healing element within time. It's like Jesus says, suffer it be so. Suffer it. Suffer it. That alone implies a series of time to where the healing element is present. Suffer through it. Because at the end of it, you're going to be healed. And even in your state of being healed, you still have to observe yourself and make certain that that past situation did not defeat you. Are you still able to love someone? And if you're still able to love someone, then you are a winner. I promise you that. Because of what I suffered out in Georgia, I should be the most evil and mean brother that you could ever meet. But I refused to die. The guy who I was, I put him to death while I was in Georgia. I put him to death on that same battlefield because I came to understand that he was the problem. It wasn't her, it was me. So once we get to the point to where we take responsibility for what we done or even didn't do, only then will we become successful towards one another. See, there's a lot of pain going on in our community with Black men and Black women. And that pain has blinded us because it's so intense, it has blinded us because we're disappointed in one another. See, the disappointment still exists because we have not sat down and effectively communicated with one another. As I said in another one of my videos, is when I was dating those 9 different women when I was driving a bus. And then one day these 2 young brothers were praising me because of that. And it made me feel like scum. And it revealed to me, not only did I feel like scum, I absolutely was scum. And it helped me understand the damage that I was doing to all of those beautiful Black women that I was sleeping with. And so after a while, I went back and I apologized to every single one of those women. And I helped them understand the damage that was done to them. And All of them said that you don't have to apologize, David. I enjoyed your company. And the only reason why that they enjoyed my company, as I said before, is because of the way that I was raised. I was raised to be a gentleman. However, even though I was able to execute myself being a gentleman, another part of myself was tragically immoral. So you have to go inside and find out where you're falling short. Now, we could sit up on all of these panels and talk about where Black women are falling short and where brothers are falling short. But as long as we're on these panels, pointing the finger at one another, talking about, well, y'all like this and y'all like this and that, I watch a whole lot of these panels, and at the end, nothing has been resolved. So all of the information that has been going back and forth goes into it's vain. Because what is the solution? What is the resolve? So I find myself coming to understand that the only way that our community is going to get better, we have to admit our faults. And as Black women, as Black men, we have to admit our faults. And we are able to admit our faults without still containing those faults and those flaws as a part of our personality. So when you admit those faults and those flaws of character, it does not imply that you have to hold on to them. In admission to those flaws, be rid of them. However, we've gotten to the point to where we are even afraid to let go of what is destroying ourselves and one another. And that's a shame. And that's one of the reasons why all of this is still continuing to flourish. But I have a whole lot of faith in all of us. And if we continue to do what we're doing, and once we get to the point to where we actually can end a discussion with a resolve that's going to give the rest of us, even the viewers, hope that things are going to become better, then our discussions imply, with everything ending in hope, things are in fact getting better. Things are in fact getting better. So I'm going to do my part. A lot of people that I know, they look at my videos, they're like, wow, Dave, you just told them blah, blah, blah. I don't care, man. I don't have anything to hide. Okay? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay? I don't worry about what people think and what they say. Oh, I would never say that. That would embarrass me. It's your problem that you don't understand the power of embarrassment and the power of shame. Embarrassment is powerful. Due to the fact that you're able to be embarrassed is good. It's a device for internal resolve and internal order. The same as shame. Shame immediately reveals to you your flaws. And in revealing to you your flaws, it, in the same movement, is telling you, get it together, get it together. So shame, embarrassment, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Now, as I said before, there's a dual component with everything. I don't think that anybody should take this and say, well, I'm going to shame this dude, or I'm going to embarrass this person because shame and embarrassment is good. It's not something that you can put in your psyche as putting bullets in a weapon and shooting it at someone. Shame and embarrassment is for yourself, because if you notice, that's where it emanates from you. Now, once someone exposes a part of you and they try to embarrass you and shame you, see, the way that I perceive that when it's done to me, I perceive it as a way of um, looking at myself and making the necessary changes inside in order to become a better functioning human being in this society. So instead of people getting angry all the time and going back and forth, oh, you don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know me, Bob, all of that conflict, it's not necessary. The whole thing is becoming a better human being so that the world can become better. We have to get to the point to where we have to understand that we are blinded by our disappointments, and things can get better if we make up in our minds and in our hearts that we're going to go through this together as a community and resolve it. This is what we used to do back in the village, back in Chicago when I was coming up in Chatham Village. My great grandmother did not allow me to disrespect my neighbor, Miss Medley, and just get a whipping from it and told me to go to my room. That's not resolved because Miss Medley next door is still offended. What are you going to do about that? This is the reason why she told me, I've taught you better. You know better. She said, you love Miss Medley, and therefore you treat Miss Medley like you love her. The very next day, as I said in the video, she came and she woke me up. She said, get up. You're going to spend the whole day with Miss Medley. And when I went over there, Miss Medley gave me a lot of information about life. And when she told me that about the flower, and when she was telling me that you're gonna struggle, but you can get past it. You wanna know why she told me that I was gonna struggle? Because she saw a personality flaw that she was basically telling me, you're gonna have to get yourself together because you're gonna struggle. However, the immense of your struggle can be lessened if you change your current self. Now, if you allow your current self to change and to become better, then your struggles through life are going to be less instead of more. Now, if all of us come together and understand that our gift of communication must become better, even on these panels, we can't be going back and forth over talking one another, because this over talking thing, it only implies that I don't respect what you're saying. I don't agree with what you're saying. So I'm going to overtalk you instead of waiting for this person to end their point, even if you don't agree with it. Have some type of self-respect and self-discipline and respect for the other person who is talking to end their point. And then you say what you say, what you want to say. My spiritual and intellectual twin, Jiddu Krishnamurti, he said there's two forms of communication: a verbal communication and a non-verbal communication. The verbal communication is I speaking to you. The non-verbal communication is you listening to me speak to you. Verbal, I'm talking. Non-verbal, you're listening. Verbal, you're talking. Non-verbal, I'm listening. That's called communication. And this is what we're going to have to learn. So we're going to have to stop being grown in that area. I'm grown. I do what I want to do. We're going to have to understand the reality and the benefits of being adults. Because when you become an adult, you understand that those things are not proper. I was telling some men at work, because there was a beautiful young lady who had came aboard, and by her being so attractive, a whole lot of my male co-workers were running behind her like a pack of dogs, and they had her working with me for a couple of nights. And what I noticed is one of my co-workers were asking her questions, and he said, "Where are you from?" And then he said, "How many kids do you have?" And see, where I come up, a question like that towards a woman is improper. And so at the end of the shift, I pulled him to the side. I said, "Brother, let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this or not, but it is very disrespectful to just out and ask a woman, how many kids does she have?" Now, a lot of people may say, what's offensive about that? I call that being all in a woman's vagina, all in her personal areas. If she wants you to know that she has children, wait for her to tell you that by way of you and her communicating in a conversation. Because I don't know any mother who tries to hide the fact that she has children. I said, as adults, there's certain questions that you shouldn't be asking a woman that you don't know. How many kids do you have? I told him, that's disrespectful, that's rude, so you need to check yourself on that. Well, he called me old school. Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I would rather be old school. Because you want to know something? Old school, this gray on my face, you want to know what this means? It means that I haven't been a fool all my life. Because Brother Richard Pryor has said, you don't get to be old being no fool. So this whole thing talking about the good die young, not all the time. Not all the time. We have a lot of young people who made a whole lot of foolish decisions that eventually led to their deaths. So I believe I'm going to do one more video of this, because even right now I'm getting some more things that I want to talk about, but I don't want these videos to be too long. So with all of this being said, I would love for us to understand the importance of resolve. Putting information out that is fruitful. Putting information out that is healing for our community. Understand that the animosity, the pains and the animosities and the results of breakup and suffering through the healing in terms of the breakup, sometimes it leaves people hurt, damaged, and ineffective towards not only future relationships, but common relationships. I mean, it could be at your job or whatever the case may be. So we have to heal in all of those areas, and the information that we're putting out on YouTube and other places, we have to make certain that at the end of all of these podcasts, at the end of all of these beautiful discussions, we end those discussions in a way to where there is some hope for us to move forward in love. So with all of this being said, I hope that a lot of you got something out of this. And so for the first time, I'm going to ask you to subscribe or press the like button if you got something out of this video. Now, this is my first time even asking that, but I have a very close brother in Texas. His name is Joshua Rose, and other people that are starting to see my videos was just telling me at least ask, you know, because at first I was saying, well, if they like the video, then they'll like it or they'll subscribe, on their own. I don't like to encourage people to do anything. What I would like people to like the videos and subscribe to my channel is because you got something out of it that gives you some type of clarity in areas that's going to help your living journey a whole lot more pleasant. So with that being said, subscribe and like the video if you will, and everyone have a beautiful and productive and successful night. And everybody, as I said before, stay human. I love y'all, and let's get it together. Let's get it together. Let's go back to the village, y'all. The village was right. All right? Peace. I was conversing with some brothers tonight. I just got in. I was just conversing with some brothers tonight about my this series. Primarily my second video, the one that I uploaded yesterday. And so they were bringing up some of the information that I put out that all of us are fully aware of. They brought up the whole self theology, and they was asserting that the opening the doors and the pulling out the chairs and all of those things, they was telling me that that reflects of what a simp is. And another brother made a valid point in terms of how Black women look at men as such today, as lame, which is very true, So the question that I put on the table, so what do? Do we stop being ourselves in order to protect ourselves because we are afraid today? And they asked me, how is it that we are afraid? And I asked them, okay, how long were your grandparents or your great-grandparents married? And a lot of them gave me numbers that was far over 30 years of marriage. And I told them, so back in the days when your great-grandfathers and your grandfathers, how do you think they ended up achieving marrying your great-grandmothers and your grandmothers? And what maintained those unions to the degree that they lasted far more than 20 years of marriage. I told them, my great-grandfather, he opened up doors for my great-grandmother. My grandfather, who I was blessed to see these things, he opened up doors for, well, my first grandmother, who was my mother's mother. I never got a chance to meet her, so I didn't see those two interact. But from what I saw of the second marriage and my grandfather's third marriage, he opened up doors for those women. He opened up car doors for those women. And because of him being a gentleman, and because of the women back in those days not seeing this type of treatment as lame, those are the characteristical attributes that led them to be married and also to maintain those marriages beyond the period of 20 years. So what is considered a simp is equivalent to what those very strong men and women understood as decent and proper behavior, gentleman behavior, and women who carried themselves as ladies. But in this day, because of our disappointments going into the mid-70s, when our mothers and fathers compromised those behaviors towards one another, this is why we end up in the shape that we are in now, to where we are calling those type of behaviors towards women simp related. And another reason why these women today see that those type of treatments towards women today are considered lame. Now, when you discard gentleman behavior towards women, you end up where we are now. When the women discard those behaviors from men, this is where you end up this day. So what's the root? Why do we reject being gentlemen today? Why does our Black women reject being ladies today? It all roots in our disappointments of the treatment of one another, because those before us compromised certain behaviors towards one another. And so during the time, there was a moral decline. And when there is a moral decline and we go into the shadows of immorality, what we do, we create a culture that is immoral towards one another. And so this is where we are this day. This is where we are today. We are angry at one another. We are disappointed at one another. And the whole root of that is fear. No one wants to take a chance of resolving our differences, that we may feel comfortable getting close to one another, so that this love that we are expressing towards one another is in fact real. It's not even based upon love anymore. Now, dating, marriage, it's all a business now. Everything is about money. What are you bringing to the table? Everything is about money. And as long as it's like that, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We're still not addressing the problems, which has nothing to do with money, because it really doesn't matter. And I'm pretty certain a whole lot of you know, it really doesn't matter how much money you have. Marriages don't work out because of the amount of money, whether you're rich or wealthy, really doesn't matter. And a lot of people fail to understand the reason why a whole lot of these celebrity marriages fail to work anymore, regardless of how each one are millionaires or even billionaires, because it's not about money. It's not. It's about compatibility based upon love and respect. Now, Brother Samuels had said that men who are considered high value have more options. Unfortunately, I will say unfortunately, in this day, that is true, because a whole lot of men feel as though they have the option of having a bunch of women simply because of their financial status. And unfortunately, a whole lot of women are after these so-called high value men because of their financial status. And with that being said, I don't really hear any morality upon either side, because now everything is about money. When back in the day, it wasn't about money. It was about love and loyalty to one another. Now, a lot of people may say, well, as they always say, you are OG. And so things are different. Well, you want to know something? Let me share this with you. I'm glad that at this state of our community that I am an OG. I'm happy because I've gotten past the whole relationship thing, and I see things clearly this day, and considering where I come from, even here, I can look out in this society and in our community, and I can determine, honestly, I don't see anything out here that I feel is going to be beneficial to me at all. As far as taking on a wife, I don't really see the point anymore, because marriage is not about love now. It's about, what can you do for me? How can I benefit from you? Not love-wise, financially. This is where we are this day. And all of that comes from pain and fear, which is rooted in the disappointments of the past. You're not going to get away from that. You're not going to get away from that. And myself, I'm not concerned about being called lame or being called a simp or any of these ignorant titles that are out there this day that a whole lot of brothers utilize and a whole lot of Black women utilize. Doesn't matter to me, because I'm far away from the fire that burns, so I don't have to worry about getting burnt by the culture today. If I want to go out on a date and enjoy a woman's company, then all I have to do is press a button in my phone. That's all I have to do. If I want to enjoy someone's company, all I have to do is press a button, and that's it. And a whole lot of these women are within this current generation. They're in their 30s and in their 40s. And that's it. But I don't see no purpose of getting married. I really don't. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're wrong for not advocating marriage. It's not that I don't advocate marriage. I just don't see anyone out here that would interest me. And at the age of 60 years old, what the hell I look like trying to get married, especially considering the success that I'm accumulating right now in a whole lot of different areas, the mentality and the way that a whole lot of these women think today. It's not beneficial to me because I'm becoming successful. I've got 6 books out right now. I'm doing very well in the stock market. It's too much to risk based upon the mentality of a whole lot of women this day. And I don't intend on utilizing my latter years in a whole bunch of chaos. I don't, because that's not a wise decision. Why come this far and make the mistake of risking getting involved with someone seriously of this generation and end up losing everything and then falling back into the abyss of misery, hurt, and pain? No. This brother has already suffered through the fire. And what the fire does, it makes you wiser and it makes you more aware and it makes you love yourself even more so that it sharpens your mind because you have a whole lot to protect now, which is your peace of mind. And if your peace of mind is taken from you, then it doesn't matter how many books that I have out. It really doesn't matter how well I'm doing in the stock market this day. I would rather that not be disturbed. So the reason why I'm saying all of that is because we are all living an awkward life right now that is rooted in fear and distrust and disappointment. And this is one of the primary reasons why I say we need to get back to loving ourselves objectively, that we may love one another objectively. It has to get back to that. Otherwise, nothing is going to transpire in our community that's going to be beneficial. We are in a critical time right now to where we're going back and forth with all of this rhetoric, scaring one another. Oh man, you a simp. You shouldn't be like that, man. And then you got women saying, oh no, girl, you a pick me. You all of these ridiculous titles. And at the end of all of those conversations, there's no resolve because we are blinded by our disappointment. So what are we blinded from? We're blinded from one another by way of fear. As I said before, it's a big mess right now. And the root of that is we're disappointed in one another and we don't trust loving one another anymore. We've become flames. We don't want to get close to anyone anymore because there's a possibility that we're going to get burned. Whether you're rich, you're going to get burned because you have the fear of losing everything that you gained. Even if you are considered a middle class brother, you still have a whole lot to lose. Because look at these middle class brothers. Look at what these modern day Black women are doing to these brothers today who opened up joint accounts. These Black women today are stealing from their own men, opening up bank accounts that their so-called partners didn't even know. Now With that being out, that's going to separate us even more so. Because now I hear a whole lot of brothers saying, no more joint accounts. Because these modern Black women are stealing from their own men. So it's getting worse. It's getting worse. So that's why a whole lot of brothers were telling me today, well, it wasn't a whole lot of brothers. It was just myself and 4 other brothers sitting down talking. But they was telling me, I don't know, Dave, it just seems like even though the message that you put out is a good message, but it's a pointless message. And I was telling them, and it's a shame that we have to feel as such. But I don't believe that any time or effort goes into waste. So we're blinded by our disappointments, and we have a whole lot of work to do in our community. But the whole thing is, are we willing to do the work on ourselves so we can get past this? Are we willing to make the sacrifices to prevent ourselves from going further into the abyss that's going to swallow up all of us? What are we going to do about the children that are coming out of this mess? And look at all of the children that are being murdered by these Black women inside of their wombs. Now they're going to Mexico to exterminate children because they can't do it here anymore. They have a determination of exterminating their own children inside of their wombs. They're willing to go to Mexico to do it. And of course, the Hispanic community is going to make it very affordable for these Black women to exterminate their Black babies. However, why are these Black women laying up with men who they would not even think of bearing their children without using protection? So we have a lot of people that are being irresponsible, and these unborn children are paying for it. Our community is in big trouble. And the same goes for Black men. If you're not thinking about having a relationship with these women, if you can't say, I wouldn't mind having a child by this woman, if you can't say that, why are you laying with her without protection? There's a lot going on in our community. And all I see is our community activating on a stimulus of self-destruction. And I'm telling you, we are a unique people. And once we understand the importance of being unique, and we start realizing that of one another, then we will eventually come to the point of where our survival is what's important. But we're so distracted by the entertainment world. We're running after these and worshiping these Beyoncés and these Jay-Z. When people don't give a damn about you. They don't. All they want is your money. That's all they want. Toni Braxton had mentioned a night when me and Mike was out. She had mentioned about the CD that her and Babyface was putting out. And if you notice, the CD cover had Toni Braxton all up on Babyface. You want to know why that CD sold so well? It came right from her. Because people outside of us don't have lives. They don't have lives. They're so interested in who the celebrities are sleeping with. All they have to do is propagate some fraudulent relationship put some songs, some real romantic songs on the back of the CD. All they have to do is put the title of the song, in which you think goes equivalent to the album cover, the CD cover. You listen to the songs are not objective. Not one song is going to tell you that they are a living couple. It's all propaganda. And those who don't have lives are going to order those CDs and make both of them rich, and ain't nothing going on with neither one of them. Ask me how I know, I would tell you. Okay? I know a lot of celebrities out here. Damn near half of them done moved here. Toni Braxton, Mike Tyson, of course, Eddie Griffin, Snoop Dogg, the Method Man has a home out here. His buddy Redman has a home out here. Ludacris is getting ready to open up one of his soul food restaurants out here. It's a lot going on. Jamie Foxx lives here. Gladys Knight lives here. It's a lot of people that live here. And so when you are friends with prominent people like Mike Tyson, you're in the environment and you hear things. I'm bringing that up is because for us to come together and get our heads right as a community, our mentality and our method of thinking cannot be based upon what you see with these celebrities and what you hear in their music. We have to get back to the fundamentals of ourselves. We have to get back to the village. As I said before, the village was correct. Our great-grandparents and our grandparents, the elders whose marriages went past 20 years, as I said before, they were correct. And if you look at after the 70s, I would say after 74, when there was a moral shift in our community and in society as a whole, marriages started to fail. Whether you were poor, middle class, or rich, marriages began to fail. Because the immorality of society began to fail the human family because of the human family. So it's time for us to have objective discussions instead of going back and forth attacking each other. Modern women are this way. Modern black men ain't shit. Modern black women are this and that. It's the culture, brothers and sisters. It's the culture. As I mentioned before, we cannot condemn black women and black men along with the culture that has affected us. And once we recognize that those before us compromised, and when everything was compromised, it went into a state of immorality, and out of immorality came an immoral culture that has affected all of us. It is the culture. So once we recognize that it's the culture, then that is where the resolve is going to begin. I heard Brother Anton Daniels. He would always say the culture is trash, and it is. Anton Daniels is correct when he say the culture is trash, because it is trash. And Brother Anton Daniels says a whole lot of things that upsets a whole lot of people. And you want to know why it upsets a whole lot of people? Because he's speaking the truth. And we have to get to the point to where you have to accept the truth for what it is. One day my grandfather told me, one day I was walking him to his car, and I was complaining about how people were responding to me. Now, this was back in the day when I had an anger problem. And the reason why I had an anger problem, I'm not going to blame it on my father, who was barely ever around. The reason why I had an anger problem is because I didn't understand what anger was. Not what I was angry at, but I didn't understand anger itself. So I was complaining to him how people was responding to me. And I told him that I'm starting to get offended of the way that people are responding to me. My grandfather told me, my grandfather's James Kelly Jr. had told me, he said, "You want to know something, David?" He said, "If you are starting to become offended of what people are telling you, then maybe you should start listening. If it offends you, then maybe you need to start listening." So basically, he was saying that they were not criticizing me. They were criticizing me constructively, and I was too angry to perceive it accurately. So he was telling me, if you're taking offense by what people are telling you, then maybe you need to start listening. I put that out there is because I see a lot of people getting offended on a whole lot of these podcasts. You have Black women getting offended by what Black men say. You have Black men getting offended by what Black women say. And so we start going back and forth. See, the going back and forth is trying to shut down one another. If we would take just a moment to listen without our emotions and our egos and everything getting involved, putting up a barrier of the mind to the point to where we would rather hear what you're saying instead of listening, I think things will get better. It's not something easy to learn, but it is available to learn. All criticism is constructive. If you remove your anger, then you will find that all criticism is beneficial to you, especially if it's coming at you. All criticism is not slanderous. It's beneficial. It all depends upon how we respond to it, either adequately or inadequately. So even if we take the time to listen to someone's outlook towards you, even if it's not true, that doesn't warrant an argument. "Oh, that's lying, that's lying." All you have to do is say, "No, that's not accurate." And stay there at the table and discuss it until we come to an objective understanding. Because we're supposed to be helping one another see the errors of one another's ways. And that's what a whole lot of these podcasts are starting to forget. And this is the reason why I was saying these podcasts are going to start ending these beautiful, informative conversations with an solution. But when they cut off and everyone doesn't come to a solution, then it leaves everything open. And that keeps the community bleeding. It's like going to someone who has been shot or killed or even hit by a car, and they're laying there bleeding. And you get up after being distracted, and what is most important, and someone says something to you or does something to you, and you move away from the person, and this person is still left bleeding until they bleed to death. You're going across the street, you're responding to something that is less important. And what is most important is the human being laying down there who's bleeding. At the end of these conversations, our community is left bleeding. And I don't know if this is for coming views or I don't know what's going on. But I do know one thing. The community is not going to be able to grow effectively until every conversation that we have bears in its ending a solution of how things can get better. As each conversation comes about, as Miles Davis told the world when he was in time and each day becoming detached from the effects of going through withdrawal from the drugs that had him enslaved. The way that he got his freedom was struggling the pains of withdrawal. And he said each day, each moment, each day, it gets better because the pain gets less and less, while the human being becomes more and more and more stronger as the vice that had him became weaker and weaker. So what are we addicted to? We're addicted to our being blind of our disappointments. Let's try our best to communicate more effectively. And let's sit at the table in terms of these podcasts and not let the subject go. And at the end, separate us in that foolish assertion, let's agree to disagree. Agreeing to disagree, it doesn't do anything but maintains divisiveness. One person going this direction, the other person goes in that direction. And what's in the middle? Discord, animosity. And some of those discussions go untalked about. You see the next podcast, what you disagree with, it's gone. Instead of continue, try to find out why we are both disagreeing with each other, because there's a very good chance both of us are wrong. So let's put our heads together. Let's put all of our heads together and find out the fact of the matter. Now, once we all agree to the fact, because the fact is not going to change. And once the fact is found, you have to remain with the fact, whether you are able to bear the fact or not. The fact remains the fact. Even if you don't like the truth of the matter, it is the truth. Maintain it. But don't separate yourself from the fact, because not every fact we're going to find pleasing. But once we understand the reality that the fact is going to always remain as it is, and it doesn't need to be changed. And that's the problem. A whole lot of elders before us compromised truth, and this is where we are this day. So I leave this, and this is going to be my final video on this subject. But I appreciate everyone who took the time to listen. And if you have any comments, just put them below. Any comments, any slander, any disagreements, I don't care. I'm just, I don't care about that. You know, I'm going to read into all of it, and I'm going to find what is useful, and I'm just going to discard what is not useful for myself. But I do know one thing. We have to get to the point to where we love each other enough to sit at the table and not get up until we reach the truth of the matter and remain with that fact, that we may be able to move forward, because there's a whole lot more things that we need to discuss. And this repetitious discussion of the same thing, it all becomes ridiculous. I mean, it's even getting to the point to where I see a lot of us reporting on things that are really not even relevant. It's not relevant. Oh, this person saw a guy come out of Starbucks, and she was, complaining that the guy didn't have black coffee and he wasn't a man. That's not important, bro. That's not important. Let's find relevant things to discuss. And I think that the most relevant things that we need to discuss in our community at this point in time is what is causing the damage in the community and maintaining that damage in our community. What are we going to do to bring a healing to our community that our youth will inherit better times? So with that being said, I'm going to end this. And I just want to say thank you for those who took the time to listen to this and observe this. And I want to say to all of the podcasters, I'm not going to mention any names in particular, because I don't want those people to think that I'm trying to gain any views by mentioning their names, because I love all of you guys, and I love the work that you're doing out there. And I'm not trying to gain any attention or any clout. I'm just telling you that I love your work, and I subscribe to your channels. I've joined your channels, and I love the work that you're doing. I would just suggest that we all end our podcast or our messages or our videos on a foundation to where there's some hope there, to where we can build on it, to where whoever is observing these videos are going to see a growth in our maturity, and where there's more understanding and more inspiration, to where they can leave our videos and our podcasts with a better understanding and a form of inspiration, to where they jump on board and do their part to make our community better and not worse. And with that being said, everyone have a good evening and stay human. And as I said before, I love all of you, and I hope everyone get a good rest and continue to be great and strive to be greater human beings.